Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our panel today. So I'm Sakdinan, and I'm the general marketer for partner marketing at Fetch. Before that, I was with Procter & Gamble for many years, almost became a lifer, and then joined Twitter for about 7 years, leading their B2B marketing until a guy named Elon came over and I changed my career. So.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Charlotte. I am with Jacquard. I do product marketing there. My background actually is on the consumer side, so I also spent some time at Procter & Gamble, Vistaprint, and Verizon.
Is this on? Oh. Hi, everyone. Kerri Thornblad, and I am the ad sales marketing for DIRECTV.
All right, and I got it to work. All right, and I'm Todd Adest. If you've been to a brand innovator event, you have definitely seen me at companies like Ad Marketplace, Newstar, Microsoft, and the list goes on and on. So we're having a really good conversation. We're in Roku. We've got DIRECTV up on the panel. For those of you that know, yesterday was like the sports apocalypse. So there was a Monday Night Football game. There was World Series Game 3, which we won't talk about as two Bronx originals. We won't talk about that. There were 2 Major League Soccer playoff games. There were 11 NBA games that happened last night. There were 8 NHL games last night. So literally every major sport was in there. We're not going to talk about the Yankees and Dodgers, but the question is, what were you watching last night, whether it was sports or some other programming? What are you watching on TV right now?
Well, I was watching the Yankee game. I did have to turn it off at some point, and I think maybe what's even more embarrassing is that I'm now rewatching Chip Crazy. So I don't know if that's better or worse than the state of the Yankees, but we're really hoping for a comeback, so fingers crossed.
I'm actually watching Rising, the Simone Biles story. I love that it was before the Olympics. They released 2 episodes, and so now you're catching up on like leading into the Olympics. So very exciting, especially because now you know that she won. But that's what I'm watching right now.
I debated whether I should divulge what I'm watching, but I'm watching Emily in Paris, and I don't know why. It's so stupid, but so addictive. I flew from San Francisco, watched 4 episodes, just riveted on my phone.
You had me beat. My wife and I were watching the Menendez story. I'm like, oh. So, all right, let's get serious. We don't have a ton of time. Certainly the connection between branding and performance is huge. You know, for the 3 of you and really the unique set that you work with, what are the biggest challenges that you find in the market today? What are the things that are keeping you up at night? What are the things that are really, you have yourself scratching your head with?
I mean, I think for me, it's just sort of aligning on KPIs. You know, I'm obviously working in support of a revenue-driving organization, and so obviously that's always the lead metric. But as a marketer, I have to spend money to make money, and that's like literally the hardest thing to prove out to any CFO. So I look at it as, you know, a combination of like 3 KPIs: art, Adtech. So art. How are we driving brand awareness? Art, how well perceived is the brand? How well liked are we? And then obviously Adtech, how are we driving sales? And how are we driving sales? So I think just kind of balancing all 3 is that a bit of an art science, not perfect science, but I think all 3 in unison is really sort of what's needed to achieve the mind share.
So this is actually a fun one for us at Jacquard because we've been able to take that challenge and flip it on its head. But I get the premise of the question, and really it is challenging. I've been in environments where it is challenging, where you're trying to find that perfect balance between the brand and the performance. And I would say it's mostly an issue in B2C, which is where I spent most of my career. But what's been great about being at Jacquard is that our team has sort of unlocked that sort of barrier where we are very much integrated and where we think about the place for brand as well as the place for performance, and specifically is what we think about the purpose of each of those is. So if you take a moment and think about what branding is supposed to represent, right? Its brand is all about building trust in what you stand for. that's what our brand is about. Like, our brand is about trust, and we need to build trust with our clients. We need to build trust with the type of messaging that we generate, which is essentially then building that trust with that consumer base for the brands that we work with. Our sales process is also about building trust. So building trust with prospective clients so that we can earn their business. And then ultimately our product is designed in its architecture in the way that it's actually built to be able to create messaging for brands in a way that they can trust AI and that they can trust that they're building the right relationships with their consumers. So ultimately for us, branding and performance are all rooted in trust, and it's all part authentically of the process. And so thankfully we can actually sleep at night because we have that as a well-oiled machine at our company.
I have a unique challenge right now in terms of branding in my company. I work at Fetch, America's most popular awards app. You may have seen the ad on the World Series last night. Hopefully some of you saw it. And the challenge is consistency. And I've never had this challenge in my career because I've worked on brands like P&G, I worked on Duracell, Pampers, Gillette. I mean, consistency was the law and it was the culture at Procter & Gamble. And then I joined Twitter and Snapchat, and it was, again, very consistent. The bird is always blue, the ghost is always yellow and white. It was consistent. For the first time, I've joined a company that's only 10 years old. I never thought it would ever be so challenging to get culturally everyone aligned to just the core basics of a brand. Everything from just color, word mark, wording, and I think it's challenging those in B2B. There are things that I call it the Air Force that you can control. This is the paid media that goes out, maybe events, it is expression, but the decks that go out to the hundreds of our sellers that go out, which is frankly our biggest marketing touch point, to maintain consistency has been really, really difficult. I think people like to be creative in young companies. Like, yeah, let's add a little touch of pink and yellow. I'm like, no. You get creative in different ways. You got to think out of the box, but within the box of your core brand assets. And it's just bizarre to me because, again, I was always growing up that was consistent. But in startups, sometimes is not the case. And your role is to actually create those boundaries and structure. But it's been a lot of fun too. I don't want to look like a complaint.
When you mean everybody isn't a marketer?
Yeah, not everyone's a marketer. Well, they think they're a marketer.
Yeah, exactly. So, in the last panel, we had Calvin Klein up here, and the sentiment was, well, you haven't won a Clio, so there's the creative component of the branding. Then there's also the performance of that add to cart, those KPIs that you talked about. So there's this debate in the industry of an either-or scenario. It's either you're in efficiency mode or you're in growth mode. What's your take? As B2B marketers, is it actually that way? And you mentioned several KPIs. How do you actually approach the market thinking about that ROI with the heart, the add to cart, what was the third one? In part. Okay.
I think my quick take on that is it's not an either or, it's an and. You very much need brand and performance. I think what's important is the sequence. The sequence is brand to demand. Like, you have to have awareness, you have to be, as well liked as possible before you can even talk about performance. And that's not really dissimilar to how we've talked about addressability in our world. I think, when we launched addressable, over a decade ago, I think a lot of clients went straight to bottom of the funnel tactics, when really we've seen time and time again that it's actually super effective in brand building and awareness. So again, not to pit one against the other, but both of them very valuable.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. It's really about the balance of both, but I think we go the extra layer to think about the role that they play relative to the customer, right? So it's about branding and awareness have a role that they play to fuel the top of your funnel. And there's a time and a place for it, as well as once you have specific qualified leads or more in the middle of the funnel, you're trying to make sure that you're either putting them on a journey that's going to get them to decide to purchase, or you're putting them on a journey where you're trying to build a relationship with them, a stronger relationship, where you're building that loyalty, where you're making sure that you're retaining them so that you don't have to think about them churning out. And so it's really an ecosystem of how those play together, and you have to know specifically the customer audiences that you're targeting. And so that becomes a very important conversation that you need to have those and have those be balanced in order for you to continue to fuel a flow down your funnel. So that's how we think about it.
Great, this question, it's surprising how much it comes up all the time. And I'm gonna give you a big tip that is not my brain, but a very smart person's brains. I'm just gonna pull it out here. I dug this out for you guys this morning. This changed my view in marketing. It's by the Institute for Practitioners for Advertising. Has everyone heard of Les Binet? Some of you have. Les Binet is a very important, critical, influential researcher in marketing. And he basically said the balance is interesting. If I were to do a graph for you, I'll try to do it your way. Short-term performance marketing is great for the big hits, he says. And then they go back down to earth and they have big hits. And they keep doing this. So what you get over time is this, in terms of short-term performance marketing. They're important. That's where you get the promotional base. The research is showing that long-term, over like 2 to 5 years, you want to do more emotional brand marketing, and big hits with singular campaigns will have this impact. So if you got this thing going here, it goes like this. And there's more of a stain. So the key is to get the mix between both. The recommended split, they say, is 6. I mean, remember, this is just one study, so take it for what you think is best for your business. 60% brand in your media spend to 40% of the rest in terms of performance. So it should be slightly overweighted to the brand side. There's really interesting executive summary conclusions. So if you friend me on LinkedIn, I can send you the screenshot exactly of what those his principles are. And I think you'll be really important finding it. But if you actually want to get it yourself, it's called The Long and Short of It. It's one of the best I've ever read. Very common sense, backed by empirical research. So grab a copy.
Yeah, Les is awesome. Really really great stuff. If you're not following him, he posts this stuff all the time as well.
Him and Byron Sharp, Byron Sharp, How Brands Grow. Those are some of the best.
So, it brings up a really interesting conversation too, because you talk about the connections, right? That 60-40 split, which is an interesting conversation. But at the end of the day, you as marketers, B2B marketers, are held to a certain standard. You're held to certain goals. There are KPIs that you have to address. And unfortunately, you have to report into some folks. So you've got to collaborate with, and honestly get budget from the CFO, right? You've got to work with the CEO. You've got to work with your head of sales. So how are you navigating the landscape? How are you working the balance of all of those relationships by serving all of those different groups simultaneously in order to get to that common ground? Do you find it challenging? Are you working in sync with one another? How are those relationships? And it doesn't necessarily have to be within your organization, so I'll never ask anything confidential or sensitive, but just overall your sentiment on that relationship.
You mean the relationship with sales and marketing?
Sales, marketing, CFO, CEO, the C-suite of just, who you are beholden to with the goals and KPIs that are set in your path.
I think it's just about identifying common goals early on, and identifying the different constituents, like really looking at specific account level, or specific revenue goals, or specific product, features, enhancements that are launching. What does the roadmap look like? And I think really sort of aligning across the board, making sure that sales is influencing the marketing strategy, and that marketing strategy is influencing the sales strategy. I think it's a continuous loop that, a continuous feedback loop that really sort of, it's a flywheel where everybody gets.
Yeah, I would say for us at Jacquard, we're very fortunate that we have that very much integrated. So from a sales perspective, the marketing team is really clear on what our target personas are, what are our target accounts, what are our wish list accounts, right? And we're very close, and we have members of our team that sit on those sales meetings so that they have insight as to how those conversations are going. We understand our sales cycle, right? So we know what that lead time looks like, and what does that mean in terms of what we have to build in between to make sure that we have some consistency from the marketing side. But another piece too is I'll add another player that we're really close to is product. So a big component is the sales team providing some of that feedback from our customers of what's working well, what's not working, what they want to see. And so we're also have a seat at a table with our product folks to say, well, what does our roadmap look like? What is the roadmap accounting for in terms of new features that we can actually bring to the forefront for that story where we're resolving some of those issues or anticipating some of those needs? And that goes back to generating revenue, right? Because in that way, we can build that relationship with existing customers, but we can also anticipate what new customers might be needing in terms of the solution, and we're therefore actively tailoring that so that we're building and those sales goals in the pipeline as we think about our product development cycle and our sales cycle, and then making sure that those are integrated from a marketing perspective as well.
I'm going to get very tactical with some of my perspective on this in terms of KPI scrutiny and alignment. I find it really depends. At least my time at Twitter, Snapchat, and now at Fetch is remarkably consistent. When it comes to events, it's interesting. I don't get KPI scrutiny from anyone. We need big events. We need to appear big and popular. Let's go for it. Okay, so let's see that big Roku sign. Like, we invest in a big sign for Fetch, or when I was at Twitter, we had to have a big bird. No one actually drills on cost on KPI. It's bizarre. They just want to come to this. It feels like the right thing. Sales enablement, the decks and the millions of decks we put out, never get any scrutiny and any investment with that. That is critical because these are tools that salespeople take that make them look good in front of clients. And then product marketing, no scrutiny at all. That has to go big win. Let's invest the right people. We need to show about our product innovation. The one that gets scrutinized the most, it's so funny, it's the thing that they sell every single day, and that is paid media. Anytime we go with paid media, then we get oh boy, you're investing $2 million in paid media on advertising age ad week. What's the payout? What's the awareness? What's the click through? I'm like, it's almost like they don't believe in advertising. I'm like, you sell ads every single freaking day. And they're drilling me for KPIs, but you never drill me about the events and everything. And I don't know if you guys have it, this similar type of, I see some nods. It's just remarkable across 3 different orgs. I'm KPI'd like crazy on one thing and nothing else. I find that, I think people think with their heart a lot. The salespeople know big events are important. They need decks that look freaking great in meetings. But that paid media thing that went in a newsfeed, I don't know. Even though I make my living selling that, right? It's kind of ironic. So
you know, I love all 3 answers, and it ties a pretty interesting theme together, right? So, you know, you had mentioned sales impacting marketing, marketing impacting sales. We're talking about KPIs, whether that be through branding or paid media. So when it comes to a sales marketing lead or a marketing lead, you know, how do you determine the best course of action? You mentioned account-based marketing versus that branding stuff. Well, what goes into the consideration set? You mentioned the consumer journey, right? So like there are a lot of things that come into play. You know, what goes through your head when you're thinking about who you're approaching and how you approach them, where that investment actually goes?
Yeah, I mean, I would say obviously just the notion of addressability and segmenting, you know, different groups of people, whether that's, you know, existing customers, new customers, you know, we need to tailor different messaging and different tactics. You're going to talk differently to a net new customer than you would a long-standing existing customer, and you know, the tactics would just look totally different. A 101 training versus, you know, something, you know, immersive. Like, it's just all about knowing your customers and knowing, you know, kind of what's needed, what is needed to move the needle. I would say there isn't really that push and pull of a marketing lead versus a sales lead, and at which point does sales kind of hand it off. Like, we're just working hand in hand all the time to understand our consumer segments, and then what are the tactics that resonate most with them. Like, that is truly ingrained in our DNA around customization, personalization, and we take that same approach on the B2B side. So really understanding what that end client needs and being able to message them in a way that, you know, is well received.
So I'll add for us what's really unique. I mean, has anybody heard of this thing that came out called AI or Gen AI?
Never heard of it.
So you know, that's the space that we work in, right? So we're an AI-powered platform for messaging and personalization. And so everybody's doing Gen AI, right? Everybody has a notion that they're using AI already, or that they've already figured it out, or that they're going to build it. And so a big piece of what we have to lead with is like, well, what was the feedback that we got? It doesn't matter if the marketing team got it, the product team, or the sales team, but what is that feedback that we're getting? And where is our message unclear in terms of our value proposition? And so that's where we spend a lot of time. It's really getting a sense of what is that feedback? How do we address that specific feedback so that we are the expert in how our product can help that specific brand solve their needs and get them to be much more automated, to be much more efficient, to connect more personally one-to-one to their customers. And then the added piece to that is then, well, how is the competitor talking about it? So we do actually spend a lot of time thinking about that messaging, not just from the customer lens, but also the competitive lens of how do we ultimately differentiate ourselves, and even for the use cases for that particular client. And we wouldn't be able to do that without, I think, having that integrated approach that I spoke to in terms of a planning perspective. But this is what it means to be like out in the trenches, actually doing it day to day and being able to stay nimble enough to do that over and over again for each of the specific clients and customers that we're working with as well.
You know, it springs to mind, I work with our consumer marketing teams, and they say, I don't know how you guys do what you do. And I say, why? It's sales guys, man. I'm like, they're just really, really challenging. I find the joy, frankly, in B2B marketing, this exact question, and bringing it to, I love it. I spent 4 years in sales, the hardest thing I ever had to do, and I have a lot of respect for what they do, and I think that's kind of changed my career. Here's one tip I had is, you know the MQL, SQL people use? I beat my head for many, here's what a definition of MQL is. Do you agree to it? This is SQL. MQL needs to talk to SQL. I just felt the sales team was like, whatever. So I said, okay, let's market to them a little more pithy. So we came up with one was, we're the Air Force, you're the ground force, okay? And when you're going out together, the Air Force has got to talk to the ground force, so we're not going to win here, okay? But ultimately, I tell them, we're only going to win if the ground force is out there with the clients every single day. We do the Air Force, we do the big events, right? We do the paid media. All this needs to talk together. So let's get a clear definition of what the KPI is for an Air Force and a ground force that they mix together. And it's funny, I said that for fun in a meeting, just kind of said it. And now at Fetch, at least, now you found this at Snapchat as well, then people now are on stage saying, as we work with the Air Force, you know, funny, simple, calming languages that appeal to the heart to drive that cultural integration. I felt that has really, really helped. So we've ditched the MQL, SQL. That doesn't win people's hearts.
You know, I tried that.
Get pithy, man.
The bald thing is just not,
What thing?
Being bald just isn't playing out. Nobody's following suit. We're running out of time. I want to ask one final question. Quick answer. You've got a room filled with veteran marketers. You've been in the industry for quite some time. What piece of advice would you impart on this crew if you were sitting in this audience 10 years ago?
I mean, I think it's just about agility. I think, you know, we come to these things, we learn all the buzzwords, and, you know, I think we can sit here and debate which products and which platforms move the needle. I think at the end of the day, it's just about, again, like consumer at the center, like offering choice, flexibility, and whatever that looks like, but just remaining consistently agile, being able to deliver that.
Yeah, I would say is I've been in environments where you spend a lot of time looking insularly within your organization and you don't spend enough time looking externally. I would say where the value is looking externally and seeing what insights you can bring into your organization, whether that's benchmarking, the campaign that you're thinking about doing, whether it's even ways of working of how you collaborate across the team. I think that what's worked so well, and I'm so fortunate to be now on the B2B side with Jacquard, it's just that's where the power is like looking at the things that are uncommon and how can you integrate that to really stand out.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if I heard myself say this, but I think B2B marketing is frankly B2Sexy. I think it's way more fun than I ever thought. I spent 2/3 of my career on consumer marketing, on big brands and everything. And I kind of look back at my time at P&G, you know, it was almost 2 decades, and I'm wondering, did I really make an impact on some of my campaigns? Like, my media budget wasn't sufficient to really get enough reach and frequency, because there's so many people that could use a shaving product or, you know, wash your clothes with Tide. And I come to B2B, and our universe that we have to hit is really small. I mean, a lot of them are in this room here. It's a small group, but each of those individuals command millions of dollars of growth and budget. I just feel way more rewarded because of the impact. I mean, if you're an individual that gets excited about Can Awards and everything, great. But I'm finding this time in my career, I just love this. I love seeing that what I do that drives growth. When people come back and say, wow, that event or this campaign or that deck your team created really brought in a lot of revenue from a couple of big clients. So I find it be sexy or be cool.
So, I mean,
Be cool is probably more politically correct.
What a fantastic endorsement for Brand Innovators and what they bring to the table. And I want to thank Brand Innovators for making this event happen. Thank you to the panelists for sharing your thoughts. And if you folks have any questions, you can find us. We'll be here all day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.